Yo, parish orphans and retrogrades, welcome to our Wednesday night edition of Rules for Retrogrades. Recently, the Superior General of the Fraternal Society of St. Pius X said something very, very controversial. In an ordinary parish, he said, the faithful no longer find the means necessary to ensure their eternal salvation. Direct end quotation. Let me repeat that. In an ordinary parish, meaning in a typical run-of-the-mill Catholic church, the faithful no longer find the means necessary to ensure their eternal salvation. I did not misquote. I have not quote mined or proof texted or cherry picked or any of the nonsense you're going to hear. This means that the Superior General of the Society of St. Pius X, who I spent many of the last months defending in my own home to my friends. You can ask Joe Enders. When he stayed here, we were arguing over SSPX and I was defending them. But their leader says quite flagrantly that, well, if you're an SSPX explainer, you have to justify the reductio ad absurdum that the means for salvation can't be found at ordinary Catholic parishes. That's what the SSPX, at least its current Superior General, believes. And if you're one of these feeble-minded fence sitters with regard to the SSPX, they will affirm the excluded middle, which is something you can't do in binary propositions. You can't affirm the excluded middle. They would say the means for salvation sort of can and sort of cannot be found at ordinary Catholic parishes, which is stupid. It's a reductio. And it's a little bit different because it's logically, modally unsound from the other kind of reductio, the one that outright affirmed by the Superior General of the SSPX. So I wanted to spend an episode getting retarded with y'all, hearing the stupid semi-defenses, pseudo-defenses, hemi-defenses, full-throated defenses, copes, what else? That the SSPX explainers and the feeble-minded fence sitters will throw at me. So I really want to invite you guys in this show to take advantage of the chat. I'm going to go through, firstly, the categorical sentio logic entailed by like Venn diagrams. Is he saying there is no one ordinary parish that is the means of salvation? Or is he saying there is at least one such parish which through its fault of even meeting the very minimalistic Novus Ordo standards, does not any longer confer the means? So this is a floor versus a ceiling question, very important. And if we were to symbolize his logic, because symbolic logic is something I enjoy quite a bit, it's not arguable. We could go through the symbolic claim being made. It's making more of it than it is. He's really saying there is no ordinary parish where the means of grace are found, where the means of salvation are there. Full stop. Is it a feature or a bug? And then we're going to go through what I've spent some time teaching or trying to teach my audience the difference between a Mott and a Bailey argument. Two different versions of the same claim. There's a Mott claim and a Bailey claim. There's a reason that dishonest folks switch from a Mott claim to a Bailey claim. A Mott claim is a very easily defensible claim that's kind of boring. Like saying, hey, some Novus Ordo parishes, the exception, lack the grace, lack the means to the grace. But that's, that's a bug. Even within the tacky Novus Ordo tradition, it's a bug. It's not a feature. Whereas the sexier, more interesting, but harder to defend Bailey claim is really what they mean. And they shift back and forth between a Bailey and a Mott, depending on who they're talking to. The Bailey claim says, no, it's a feature of the Novus Ordo that you can't find the means of grace, the means of salvation there. And it's very different. When you deal with someone that deals in Mott and Bailey claims, they're slippery. It's to an untrained eye, to someone that's not trained in the law, in debate, in philosophy. I am, generally speaking, there's no finer under 50 Catholic debater than I. If you think that you are he, then you should contact me and we'll find some way to figure it out. Lots of great debaters outside the Catholic Church. I've gone up against many of them, and it's very easy to spot a Mott and Bailey claim, but it's very hard for the untrained eye, the uncritical eye, to spot it. And that's why they work on people. And that's why it's such a big part of what I will call the SSPX sales funnel. They want to keep it a wide sales funnel because Bailey claims keep sales funnels wide, particularly with this question of necessity. Mott claims keep sales funnels narrower. I'll explain what I mean when I get to that part of the show. And finally, I would just say, because of this narrow wide Mott Bailey sales funnel categorical logic error, the reductios that folks are going to be making, saying that you can't go find an ordinary Catholic parish that confirms the means of grace, which is what the SSPX Superior General just said. You say, look, I don't like most of what the Novus Ordo Church has been doing since 1958, but I do some weeks go to a Novus Ordo. And I'm not a SETE, I'm not SSPX. I know the TLMs better. And I would say I don't like what Francis has done, or really any of the popes since the council. I'm very sympathetic. And one of my probably least favorite things about Pope Francis was his weaponized ambiguity. And I would say, look at this configuration of arguments. The feinting and the jabbing, the slipping punches, the Motts and the Baileys which become Motts, and vice versa. This is SSPX weaponized ambiguity. When they say, hey, come to our church, come on over. Same as, I'm not saying they're Protestants. Michael Vorse used to say that, and I used to be like, no, they're not. Hey, listen, guy. They're not really Protestants, but it's very Protestant when they're trying to pack their church and they say, well, we have this exigency. We need to what they're thinking is we need to exaggerate the emergency. Emergency is bad enough. You don't have to leave your Novus Ordo. Go to a TLM if you can, for heaven's sakes, but you don't have to leave being a part of the mainline Roman Catholic Church, whatever you want to call it. It's not that bad an emergency, according to Catholic teaching, Catholic self-characterization. But the other side that wants to claim emergency special status, we have to break some of the rules, and therefore we need an emergency status. They're going to widen the amount of the emergency. Come on down. You're not getting the real stuff. If you're going to an ordinary mass, you're not going to be saved. You can't be saved going to a Catholic church. This is literally what he said. I'll read it one more time. In an ordinary parish, that means pick 20 parishes, hit them on a road trip. Novus Ordo, just typical Catholic churches. Ordinary one, 20 out of 20, maybe 19 out of 20, but 20 out of 20 on some road trip where you're not picking the most unicorn faithful, you're not picking the clown masses, you're just going to 20 on a road trip. The faithful no longer find the means necessary to ensure their eternal salvation. I'll tell you what, after defending these guys for so long, this is a bridge too far. This is, you gotta appreciate the set of Acontis that say these SSPX cats are just tepid, shallow, and I guess a little bit fearful set of Acontis. They want to be SETEs. And SETEs full-throatedly say it. Yeah, of course, they'll say you can't find the means of salvation at a what passes for an ape Catholic church anymore. You can't do it. You gotta come to a SETE chapel. You gotta come to a SETE chapel if you want real salvation. They'll full-throatedly say the lack of valid sacraments at what passes as a Catholic for them, a fake Catholic mass, confession, communion, the whole gambit, that is as a feature not any good. Not grace conferring. They'll say it. And you just go, okay, so they have this big sweeping claim. SSPX always tries to walk between the raindrops. They'll say, no, the council's technically valid. It's bad, but any part, it's not doctrinal. And therefore, yes, we acknowledge the sitting pope and all of the popes from the council. Yes, we acknowledge that the Novus Ordo is valid. It's just bad. They'll say that as their mock claim. I guess, yeah. And then they switch to this Bailey claim, particularly when they're talking amongst themselves, or they start feeling their mustards, start feeling their oats. They start surging 3/4 of the way through the race, and they get a little bit loose. 2 beers in, they start talking smack, and they start talking like sedes, except they don't have the courage of their convictions the way the sedes do, which is what the sedes always say. If you ever watch a sede versus SSPX debate, this is precisely what they say. The sedes, they're like, these guys want to be like us, but they won't come all the way over. They won't cross the Tiber to the real church. And that's I think, a perfectly valid position. Sedevacantism is philosophically coherent. It might, no, I think 99% chance it's the wrong worldview. But there's not a contradiction in its premises, making it philosophically coherent. It might still have the wrong conclusion, which I think it does. 99% sure, but it's philosophically coherent because its premises go together. SSPX is not the same way. We're not coming to the wrong conclusion only. There's internal contradiction in the major and the minor premise. Vatican II was valid, and so is the Novus Ordo, but it's so bad that it's not really. That's the minor premise. So what? That's not what we call philosophically coherent. And so I would say the sedes are philosophically coherent, whereas SSPX is not. I'm going to go through in detail why this is wrong. And that's going to be today's show. Just give you some analysis. I'm not telling you my opinion. All I will be dropping is science, spitting facts, just going through what is required by this claim. What is required about the status of ordinary Roman Catholic parishes by this claim, and what must be true and what must not be true. And then, hit me with your comments. I want to hear them.
I just wanted to say we have a really bad storm blowing in. So if you guys lose our feed, then that's what happened. So we're under a tornado watch. So we're just going to keep going as long as we can.
And if you see me hovering 2 or 3 feet above, that's either a tornado or probably not a spiritual combat, not crisis. So hopefully we don't get hit by a tornado. If you find yourself in a blue state, you need to get out. I mean, if you just wake up from a coma and you're in a blue state, get out. Or if you've been in a blue state for years, decades, and you have been complacent about getting to a place with more Christian, conservative, trustworthy neighbors, get out now. Go to www.realestateforlife.org. Get out of a blue state, get to a red state today. I literally did it, and it changed our day-to-day life immensely when we got from the bluest of the blue, California, to the reddest of the red, Mississippi. And it's a palpable, everyday, quotidian grace that we live here. www.realestateforlife.org, right? Did I say .com? It's .org. Realestateforlife.org. Now, the way you can support this channel is by subscribing. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave a comment, especially on this particular episode, which tends toward controversy. And if you really want to help beyond that, support Rules for Retrogrades on locals.com. Remember, I've been kicked off of Patreon for telling the Catholic truth there. You can support for $13 a month or more and get what we call a Parish Orphan Patron Pack with all of this cool stuff, a pin, a button, a little handcrafted weave by Steph Gordon, a memento mori, 2 fridge magnets. It's really, really cool, hard goods, tangible goods. And of course, if you just want to support us for $5 a month or $10 a month, we really need it. Speaking of which, I did do an announcement that 10 days ago, our 8th child, our 7th girl was born, Adelaide Bede Gordon. She was born just this morning. we've been dealing with some health issues.
She was born on the 26th.
Yeah.
You said she was born just
No, just this morning. I was saying just this morning we got confirmation that she does have Down syndrome. So keep Adelaide in your prayers. We're not worried about the Down syndrome. We already have another special needs kid in the household. Actually, it's our bookend children, our eldest and our current youngest.
Our 2As.
But we're currently waiting for a blood test or two to come back, actually, like moment to moment here, on some of the associated health risks. So scary stuff like 10x or 20x the odds for leukemia. It's crazy because they're just parents, and they'll be in the comments, blessed, saintly souls, trudging on, soldiering through their child's difficulties. And I don't even know. I know about hydrocephalus and brain surgeries associated with cerebral palsy, all that stuff, in utero strokes, because we went through that with Abby. But it's crazy when you learn, oh, I knew Down syndrome. I worked with some Down syndrome kids. I didn't even realize that they're at a heightened risk for heart, cardiovascular trouble, or for leukemia, 10x or 20x more likely for leukemia. Boy, that's scary. Gosh. You guys out there who have special needs kids and you do it, we love you guys. So if you would just include Abby in your prayers, include Hattie in your prayers. That's our new little, she's Adelaide Bede, but we call her Hattie, partly after her city here, and Hattie for Adelaide. Please just include her in your prayers. People are asking, if you wanted to donate or something. That's for the family. That's not the same thing as, supporting the channel on locals. You can do that at the donate button at timothyjgordon.com and on the P.O. box that we have listed there. People are always asking
right here with us right now.
Yeah, she's sitting in Steph's
I'm literally
arms.
holding her right now.
She's the most adorable thing ever. So she's really cute. It's ridiculous how cute this little baby is.
She has like an inbuilt fan club. I was joking with her doctor. Like, it's kind of crazy. It's like, I know that a lot of Down syndrome kids aren't like they're not necessarily like as welcomed into the world as this little Down syndrome baby. She is like the star of our household. Like, our kids will not leave her alone. I have to tell them, like, leave her alone.
Because she's one of 7 sisters, and sisters are they're great lovers. So
she is great. She's great. No, it's just briefly, I'll say this. Like, I haven't shed one tear over the Down syndrome thing. It's, we're just so lucky. I think with Abby, we learned really quick. Like, I'm just thankful when my children are born alive into the world. When Abby was born, there was a question whether she was even going to survive. And that was our first. And ever since then, I was like, we can handle anything as long as our children live. It's like, we've had in the Catholic community some crazy things with Cameron Richter's son dying. Kennedy Hall's baby had a heart condition. Richter, I'm sorry. Didn't mean to say his name wrong.
Insult to injury.
Wife having brain cancer. It's like, dude, Down syndrome to me compared to all that stuff, it's like, easy peasy.
Kennedy Hall's little baby, God bless the baby and the family. Cameron Reeker's little boy and 1 or 2-year-old boy, God bless the baby
James,
and the family. What?
James, when his baby died of meningitis.
Our friend James Carisalas had a baby die of meningitis at a year old. What?
Our friend Anthony Bedoy's twins passed away.
Friend Anthony Bedoy, another great Catholic, had both of the twins die in utero. There's what's her name? A Catholic comedian.
Jen Fulwiler.
Jen Fulwiler
has
a daughter with brain cancer. Just pray for all of these little beautiful Catholic kids and for their families. Their families need a lot. I mean, it's one thing. It's really tough when you can't. I don't want to do a whole thing, but when you can't baptize the in utero kid, that's really tough. But the kids, if you can baptize them. We had Adelaide's baptism at the TLM in New Orleans this past weekend.
Thank you, Father O'Brien.
8 days old, 7 days old. Thank you, Father Garrett. Once they're good, they're kind of good. And it's almost like the family needs more of your prayers. I mean, the kid does too if they're struggling through something. But with the loving family, it's the family that needs the prayers. 60-40. Anyway, we love all of you guys. Everyone we mentioned, Kennedy Hall, all those people. These are soldiers, and they're the most pro-life people there are because they're willing to actually put skin in the game. If you have more kids, you're just more likely to have a Down syndrome baby or a but what is it called? Where you in spontaneous abortion or whatever.
Yeah,
where
miscarriage.
miscarriage.
Was really how I'm 43. We did get confirmation that she does have just like the regular form of, I don't know if you saw this in the results, but it is the regular form of Down syndrome. So it's not genetic to you or I. It's just like a spontaneous thing that could happen to anybody. I guess there's 3 forms of Down syndrome. One of them, it could be genetic. She didn't have that. Then there's mosaic Downs, which is kind of like Down syndrome light. And she didn't have that one either. She just has just typical run-of-the-mill Down syndrome. But again, like I've been thinking about all these Catholic families the past week as we've been going through this. And I'm just like, I'm holding my baby in my arms right now. I have nothing to complain about. And she's absolutely adorable. So we are doing just fine. We're just going to have to weather through some of these initial tests and that sort of thing. But we've been there before and we can do it again.
Okay, well, so back to the issue at hand. In an ordinary parish, the faithful no longer find the means necessary to ensure their eternal salvation. This is a rhetorical thing. I would just say, first things first, how do you guys feel about that? Anyone out there who goes to an ordinary Catholic parish, not a special chapel of the Society of St. Pius X, not a special parish, a bigger subset, yet still specified parish that offers the TLM. You know, we have to travel to New Orleans to hit ours. That's a special kind of parish. There's a more numerous amount of those parishes than the SSPX chapels. But if you just go to an ordinary run-of-the-mill Novus Ordo Catholic parish, this leader within SSPX, the Superior General, says, in one of those parishes, the faithful no longer find the means necessary to ensure their eternal salvation. He did not, let me talk about what he did not say. He did not say the faithful find it a little more difficult to ascertain the means necessary to assure their eternal salvation. That would be a mock claim. It would be unsexy. We would agree with that. It's why do basically all of us go to the TLM when and where we can? Because it's easier to grease the soteriological skids. And no, that's not a diaper joke or you know, a trouble. It's not a continence joke. That is like literally it's easier to grease the skids, and it gives you all of the equipment and then a little extra for the objective part of your salvation to meet those criteria. For the subjective part, is always just sin. You're always just struggling against your own sin, against yourself. It's a man against himself. That's the subjective part of soteriology, getting to heaven. What is salvific? And there's interactivity between the subjective and the objective part. That's what we call formation, is the interactivity between the subjective and the objective part. But objectively, yes, it's easier to be really inspired by beautiful Latin chant and people around you who set a really good example at properly revering the Eucharist. I get it. That's not what he said. So don't react to that. I'm not interested, and I will not take your comment if you react to that mock claim as if that's what he said. That's not what he said. I wouldn't. It's a mock claim precisely because, I'll repeat it one more time, it's easily defensible, boring, and ungrabby. And it's not something I'm interested in debating. And Novus Ordo Missae ain't a means of it's not a really efficient means of grace, which is less unlikely. It's less unlikely than a TLM to be efficiently conferring grace. Well, that's not interesting. I know that. That's why I go. That's why I drive. I'm a lazy man. That's why I drive an hour 45 minutes to the TLM in New Orleans. I have a church. I have a boomer parish 90 seconds outside of my neighborhood. This literally appeals to me greatly. I have many children. I have 8 children, a family of 10 that I stick in an 8-person van. Okay. So we're gonna have to upgrade. So to go, I would rather go 90 seconds than 90 plus minutes. I'm a lazy man. So if this is the whole claim that the Superior General were making, and it's not, then I'd say, well, I agree with you. No disagreement. Great statement. That would be the Mott claim. But he's not interested in making the Mott claim. Another thing he's not interested in is sometimes the sermons are dangerous for your family to hear at Novus Ordo Mises. We turn the volume down on the sermons at Novus Ordo, sometimes literally, sometimes figuratively. Remember in COVID, where the sermons were on through the radio? There's still masses around that have that. So we can sometimes literally turn them down, or sometimes just sort of tell the kids don't listen, sometimes walk out, do whatever you have to do. If it's a bad liberal sermon or they're defending what trads will call heresy, which is not usually what a bad sermon is. It's normally sort of heterodoxy adjacent. It's not usually saying, hey, there are 4 persons in the Trinity, guy. That's not what they're doing, usually. They're saying things like, well, Jesus didn't really understand that divorce isn't that evil. If he understood that, I mean, I've literally heard this. Okay, so that's heterodoxy encouraging, but that's not. If that's what you have, if this were the full nature of the claim that the Superior General of SSPX made, that would be another Mott claim. It would just be, yeah, no, I agree. That's not what he said. He made the Bailey claim. The Bailey claim is the difficult to defend, or even impossible to defend in his case, given that he's not SSPV or set of a contest at least. It's more controversial, it's sexier, it's more difficult to defend, it's grabbier, it's more interesting, and it warrants more exceptions if true, which is what they're interested in. Saying something like a typical Novus Ordo Mise ain't conferring the means of salvation to anyone. That's what he said. To anyone. That's the Bailey claim. And people on Catholic media are now talking about Mott and Bailey's. No one's trained in analytic philosophy besides me. I'm the one that brought you guys all this. So it's like you only know because I told you. Okay? So don't get sassy. Don't get uppity with me about like, well, that's not a Mott and Bailey. This happens so much where I will introduce something that's otherwise extrinsic into the Catholic right-wing ethos, echo chamber. And then I'll hear people be like, well, Tim, is that really a Mott and Bailey? I'm like, you learned about it from me, bro. I'm the teacher. Put your hand down. And no, I'm not like, I don't talk about that many issues. I talk about like 5 or 6 issues and they get recycled, but I don't talk about that, which I don't know. There's a philosophy instructor in college. And this is not even particularly something that is studied by many Catholics. This is an analytic area of philosophy.
I was going to laugh and say, like, I know one instance where you did teach about what you did not know. When you tried to teach your brother karate, and you did not know karate at all. By the way, we're going to have the eldest Gordon brother on soon. We're hoping.
Yeah, we're going to do a science show. We're going to do a quantum Thomism show. Yes, amazing topic.
There are 3 Gordon brothers. You know of 2. The 3rd will be revealed.
Stand by.
Stand by.
So don't tell me about Mott and Bailey claims. Don't tell me about it. This guy, the Superior General of SSPX, said, in an ordinary parish, this means take the average, take the middle, take the median. In an ordinary parish, the faithful no longer can find the means of necessary to ensure their salvation. He's just saying the Catholic Church isn't the Catholic Church. It's an ape church. If you go to anything other than our chapels, no salvation outside of the chapels. That's what somebody joked online. And all the angry little SSPX adjacents jumped on him. I'm like, guys, I'm always defending you. I'm not just saying it either. I'm always like, no, that's not true. Most people that critique SSPX say like, the Novus Ordo is great. No, it's not. There are tons of problems from the council, but I'm asking you, because this is an IQ gate, to not be retarded on one side, not to be retarded on the other side. It's a complex issue, and we are being asked to wait patiently through this Saeculum Obscurum. This is why I've taught you about what the Saeculum Obscurum was in the 10th century. There are these periods where you just live through it. You don't have to start making stuff up. You don't have to start fabricating Mont Bailey claims about emergency situations and that we just made this rule up that means you get to consecrate bishops. No, that's not true. That would be true, perhaps, if there was no means of salvation at a typical Catholic church, which is what they have to say. They have to expand their salability by making this claim. It's very clear. And then when you push them back into a corner, they stop making the Bailey claim, the sexy, difficult claim, and it's just the Mott claim. And this was even happening. I was talking to Rob from Avoiding Babylon on it. I can read the tweets, but he jumped in and he was sort of defending the Superior General's words. And I was like, oh, so you agree with him that the means for salvation can't be found at Catholic parishes? I mean, a Catholic parish. And he's like, no, I'm just saying, boy, that's annoying. I'm just saying that, you know, it sort of can, it sort of cannot, or you got to watch the sermons. Or so he moved from the Bailey back to the Mott without even knowing he's doing it. Humans just do this when they're not sure about the argument they're waging. Is this clear? I mean, how do you guys feel about it? Just rhetorically, how do you feel about the fact that you go to ordinary Catholic parish, you can't get salvation there? This is like in college. I happened to be sort of dating, sort of friends with an evangelical girl who was just telling me I can't be saved in a Catholic church. It's annoying. It's a sales funnel. It's illiterate.
Yeah, I remember like having a conversation with a Protestant girl who found out I went to Catholic church, and that it was like that. It's like, oh, well, you're not going to go to heaven. It's like, you don't have any account for people's individual virtue or faith. Well, I mean, that's really, I hate using the word charitable, but it's really uncharitable to most people who are attending Novus Ordo, who actually are trying to be faithful, good Catholics, who are living out their faith and doing the right thing.
No, I'm not even speaking for them. I would never say most people at this are trying to do that or what. I'm not doing that. I'm saying the objective part of soteriology, Stephanie, is at a bare minimum the Eucharist and confession being offered at a parish as a feature. Even the most liberal parish I've ever gone to, and I've grown up in the South and the American West, the two most Catholic cultureless parts of this country, it tends to be better in the Midwest, the Novus Ordo, and the Northeast. Midwest and Northeast have better Novus Ordos. South and West are the worst places in this country, the least Catholic places in this country.
But to be fair,
I just want to get this out there. I'm talking about the objective component of salvation. Do they have a validly confected Eucharist and a confession with ego te absolvo said, and nothing skipped where they're demonically not doing the sacrament properly? Those are the means of salvation, and along with baptism and confirmation, but those are one-time deals. The main two things are those two sacraments. Are they there? They're there at the most liberal parishes I've been at in the rancid wasteland, spiritually bankrupt American West and South. South is dominated by Protestants and evangelicals. The West is dominated by secular leftists. And I've never been at a parish where they do any of these things that would invalidate it. Okay, sorry. What were you going to say? That has to get out there. I was just
going to say that I think you're absolutely right. I mean, we lived this out in our own lives. Like before I even went into surgery, we have a very liberal parish near us. But to be fair to our priest there, every time we call for confession, it's him answering his church phone, and he will fit us in every time. And we'll come at crazy times. Like sometimes our kids will tell us, like, in the evening, I need to go to confession. And Tim will take our kids right over to confession. So it's we believe it enough where we're like, yeah, I know if I go to confession, even at the Novus Ordo or with this liberal priest, that I will be forgiven through Christ.
Right.
And
thank you. That's a great
I
point.
did that before my surgery. I didn't do a confession at the TLM. You literally called this priest and you were like, my wife is going into surgery in a matter of hours and she needs a confession before she goes. And I went in and I, put my money where my mouth is. I got my confession done with this liberal priest and I was perfectly fine with God.
So did the priest. He put his money where his mouth is. And let me say, when we first moved to Mississippi, I talked about this some on air. I got off on the wrong foot with this local 90 seconds away pastor. But he didn't like that I criticized a homily, of course. Of course, he wouldn't like it. Of course, I would do it. But he came back around, and originally he was like, I don't know if this is going to work, or something like that. But he came back around, and he knows I'm a Latin Mass guy, and I think he knew I had a show with Taylor Marshall. He figured out who I was. But he has been, far be it from me to defend a liberal, but he has been so terrific with my family. Yeah, it's a kind of boomer parish where not everybody's doing confession like weekly. I'm not saying we always do it weekly, but I'm bothering him at least once every 2 weeks for at least one or two members of the family, if not all of those of us who are communicants. And he's great. And he'll literally fit it in. So that's what I mean. I guess I'm sticking up because this is where the sales funnel of the SSPX will try to stick you. Oh, you're sticking up for the liberal priests. I'm like, and this guy's definitely, he's an Irish priest. He's very personable. He's definitely not, he's not that way. He's Irish, so he's a little more liberal, a little more Novus Ordo, but he takes it seriously, even being politically left. He's like, no, that's great. If you want to come in, I'll do it. He can be walking into Mass, and if I'm like, hey, could I get this for Abby? Can I get this? Abby had to have the one Eucharist per year. It's really hard for her to do it because of eating's difficult or the Mass. He does it all. And what they're saying is that, and I would call this local Novus Ordo a very typical parish, maybe left of typical, but it doesn't have clown masses. It has what you'd expect, kind of auditorium mass in the round, no crucifix up, but we try to go to the TLM, but the means of salvation are there. And that's what you have to do in Seculum Obscurum. That's what you have to do, is tailor it as the man of the house to what your family needs. I have this nearly 18-year-old daughter that does have to receive Eucharist once a year, even though it's very hard for her. She'll spit out the Eucharist. That's Abby. She doesn't need confession because she's incapable of forming the intent. But now we have 4 kids who are communicants total. Mm-hmm. Yourself, me, a new baby who required baptism. Of course, we go to the TLM to get the first baptisms and the confirmations and first communion. We go to New Orleans. But the sacraments are there. The means of salvation are there. And this is it's politically right wing, but spiritually, this is center left. Very typical. And the means of salvation are there. And they'll go, well, you have all kinds of midwits and nitwits in Twitter trying to defend the sales funnel, the emergency exception sales funnel of SSPX, going, well, but if you listen to a heretical sermon, can't that lead you astray? Well, no, we've heard borderline, we've heard ones on marriage sort of propping up divorce, particularly under Francis. That's not going to make you go get a divorce. It's not heretical. So it turns out part of this widened, overbroad sales funnel that the SSPX uses is rhetoric that is often inclusive of things like, maybe Jesus, if he lived in the 21st century, would have been more compassionate to divorced and remarrieds. Okay, maybe that's a retarded point. It's ridiculous. It's wrong. It contradicts the gospel. But that doesn't remove the effective means of salvation. It just doesn't. You know what I mean? So what? They're going to... Have you ever heard a sermon where you start believing something fundamentally wrong with dogmatic theology? There's 4 persons in the Trinity or 2. It's ridiculous. Most of it's on pelvic issues where they're trying to make it okay and they're trying to soft pedal it or soften it up without outright saying it, which is the conciliar trick. And it doesn't make you a heretic even if you sit there and listen to it, even without a dad kind of barking out, don't listen, this is wrong, the way I do. Even if you listen to it, you just might be a little softer on divorce and remarriage than a Catholic should, but that doesn't remove the means of salvation. But see, that's when the SSPX guys move from the Bailey back to the Mott, and they make the easily defensible claim. Well, what if we imagine someone that heard those sermons for years and eventually 20 years down the line ended up getting a divorce because he believes that divorce and remarriage is possible because he went to this parish? Great. Cool hypo, bro. Cool hypothetical. It's not what we're talking about. That's the Mott claim. Yes, if you imbibe bad stuff for years without anyone correcting it, like your household father, it will lead you generally off the path. That's not what was said. What was said specifically is, in an ordinary parish, you can't find the means for salvation. Doesn't mean I'm defending the bad homiletics or the soft-pedaled heterodox doctrine. No, I agree with all that. But you're bouncing between a Mott claim and a Bailey claim. If you have valid Eucharist and valid confession, that is the bare means, what we will call the conceptual floor for salvation. And the SSPX Superior General said that you do not have what is needed at the conceptual floor. He's saying there's not one ordinary typical parish that has the means of salvation. It's a feature of the Novus Ordo parish, in other words, that it lacks the means of salvation. It's not a bug. And he'll always pivot to this Mott claim. There's at least one such parish where maybe they're not consecrating the Eucharist, right? Well, everyone knows that. I mean, yeah, that's called a Mott claim. And he's shifting back and forth, and it's a form of weaponized ambiguity, and it's profoundly mendacious. That's what's annoying. And I spend more time than I care to recount defending SSPX. You can ask Joe Enders. I was like, no, they're right about the Novus Ordo. It's super cheesy. Don't go too far and start saying it's beautiful. I hate that. Just say the truth. The Novus Ordo is ugly and kind of risky, unless you're the dad and you're like, look, this is tacky. We're going to go to the real mass. I don't mean the only valid one, but the most legit version of the mass when we can. Pay attention there. When we go to the Novus Ordo, kind of just pay attention to the way I characterize the gospel when we're driving home. I'll step in as the priest. We don't tend to get communion there unless we haven't been to the TLM in a real long time. And we'll get confession from that priest. Means of salvation. So that's the conceptual ceiling. Yeah, I know there's, and when you're dealing with the conceptual ceiling, that's when you're dealing with the proposition that ineffective sacraments, inefficacious graces, semi-graces, pseudo-graces are the feature, not the bug.
Joe Enders is in chat, and he's reminding you that you guys actually argued for 3 hours about it.
Who did?
Joe Enders is in chat.
Oh, okay.
He's reminding you that you guys actually argued for 3 hours.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just like, look, it just gets fake and gay, as Joe can say this, and I just hate fake and gay arguments. And yet everyone's saying that now because Candace said it. Like, her husband literally told me, oh, Candace got that from you. It's fake and gay when people are like, the Novus Ordo is great. It's not. It's horrible. It's going to go away. It's going to die. It's already died by Vox Populi. They were trying to sell it as the young people want it. Young people hate it. Now they openly admit it's 2 generations later, and they're like, young people want it. What's wrong with them? Like, oh, I thought you just, at the council, all the Ronerites just said, we're changing the mass because it's what the young people want. They put they put words into the mouth of the young people. That has proven to not be true. So now they're just, they're on to the next phase of defending it. The next phase, or maybe the one after that, the 3rd or 4th phase of this will just be the Novus Ordo dying. And Bishop's just going, yeah, I'm not going to defend this anymore, dude. The TLM is going to come back. It's going to preponderate, not because of some emergency exception or exemption or SSPX bishops being consecrated. I'm not even doing the show on that. I'm not even attacking that per se now. But it's just because the people want the real shit, bro. They want the real old Coke. Like I made that up on Taylor Marshall's show. Old Coke, new Coke. The new Coke's going to go away. It's just these guys pitching new Coke aren't as shrewd as Coca-Cola executives were in 1985. You know, that shit came out in 1985 and they're like, look, we just want to turn $1. We thought people were bored with old Coke. We were worried about Pepsi doing fancy new stuff. So we made new Coke. People hated it. So it took them like 7 months to turn it around. It's taken a little longer because these people do have, some of the Ronerites have the fire of Satan fueling them. That doesn't mean that you can't, unless you're a sede, it doesn't mean you can't find the means of salvation at a Catholic parish. That's just nonsense, and everyone has to decry it.
And I don't even believe people who think that, because I think that if you were dying, if let's say like you had like 15 minutes to live, and there was a Novus Ordo parish near, was the closest to you, and all you had to do was to get a confession and Eucharist at Novus Ordo. It's like, come on, everyone knows you would do that. I don't even believe people when they say that. I'm not saying it's like you. I'm not saying it's preferable. Obviously, we love the TLM and we try to go as much as possible. But the point being that you're making is that you can certainly find salvation there.
Yeah. And like you say, I don't believe people pretend to believe that. And it's part of the necessity exemption sales funnel. A wider sales funnel means, hey, man, your car is going to explode if you keep driving it. If a car salesman tells you that, you're like, well, I kind of wanted a new car anyway, but now it's a matter of safety. You just widened the sales funnel. You made the basket bigger. It's easier to drain threes when the basket's bigger, right? You widened your sales funnel. If now it's not just for fun, but it's an emergency exception, and they need the necessity exemption to get a bunch of, to justify breaking a lot of the rules, like consecrating bishops without the Pope's permission. You can't do that. I'm a papal minimalist and you can't do that. And so they also need the Bailey claims, but they need to be able to downshift, throw it into second, and go to mock claims when they're dealing with a master forensics guy, like I was going to say master debater, like myself.
Oh, boy.
So they use the Bailey claims. Anyone does who uses Mott and Bailey claims when they're around less shrewd audience, less sophisticated operators. And then they get around a more shrewd operator and they downshift into the Mott claims. And they widen and narrow their sales funnel accordingly. They go into kind of defense mode when I jump into it. I'm like, look, I think a lot of what they say is true. I agree with them culturally much more than I agree with the typical Novus Ordo parish priest, but I just don't get into the lying and the weaponized ambiguity. And this is all it ends up being, is right-wing weaponized ambiguity where you make Mott claims and Bailey claims. What would Francis do when he would interview with Eugenio Scalfari those 11 times? Big sweeping Bailey claims. Jesus might not have been God while he was man.
Tornado warning.
All right.
All right, guys, we're going to cut it there. Sorry, we're going to do a local show, but we have to take shelter from a tornado.
Do the local show later. Yeah,
So,
I heard it's
see ya, guys. Sorry.
My neighbor just warned me we got to take shelter.
Okay,
so
we're going to be taking shelter.
we'll
Sorry,
talk
local.
soon. We're upstairs. That's a